JMU thrashes App State and clinches the spot in the Sun Belt Championship game. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. I'm Dave Schultz. This is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country. All right, lots to go over, obviously. We had a couple of upsets, one that we did lose money on, but it is what it is. All right, we'll get to JMU here in a minute. We did figure out the tiebreakers. It's actually not that difficult. And we'll go through as many games as I can get to when we'll move on and do that. Whatever we don't get to today, we'll get to on Tuesday. All right. So JMU takes care of App State 58-50. I'm sorry, 58-10. Combined with Coastal Carolina's loss, JMU clinches the Sun Belt East. They will play in the Sun Belt Championship game. They are not hosting a game day. That got misreported. It is what it is. We move on. They take on Washington State, I believe, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. All right. Don't make any mistake about it. In this game, JMU was trying to run up the score, and they did. Few things going on in this one. Snowballs from last year was an issue. And then apparently players from JMU trying to self-motivate themselves. I don't know if we have video of it. I didn't see anything. But they said some App State players were doing stuff at midfield that maybe they should not have been doing. Okay. So they wanted to lay on the wood. It took a little bit for JMU to get going, to be honest with you in this one. Trying to see the score as I was giving tours throughout the day on Saturday. JMU was only up 7-0 at the end of one. All right. And I think it was 10-0 halfway through the second quarter, and then it spun out of control. They put a 20 spot up in the second quarter, 27-0. Alonzo Barnett, the third, put the finishing touches on his day with a fourth quarter touchdown leading drive. It made it 44-0, and obviously that was it. The thing about this game was, not only was it the defense that was so impressive, but it was or the offense that was so impressive. It was the defense that was ridiculously good in this one. If we just go through what App State did quarter by quarter, they had 28 yards in the first quarter. They had 12 yards in the second quarter. In the third quarter, they had minus 11 yards. So heading into the fourth quarter, App State had a total of 29 yards. They obviously didn't have any points. Technically, they had 4 first downs. Can't take away your first downs. So that's where that defense was. And then when the reserves go in there, they got 117 yards and 10 points in the fourth quarter. That's really great. Okay. So what I'm going to say next is we're not taking anything away from JMU, because I think JMU deserves, obviously I'm going to be a homer, but I think JMU deserves to be in the college football playoff. Now, let's not go off the deep end until we see who they're going to play, and circumstances could be anything. Who knows what's going to happen in a couple weeks, a month. I believe the playoffs are a month from this past weekend. All right, that would be the first round of the playoffs. But what happens if JMU is playing Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin? I don't know, right? What happens if that's the case? Who knows? But we'll wait to see. What we're not going to do here is sit here and tell you that JMU defense is going to do to Oregon or to UGA what they did to App State. Let's not pretend that. Also, the other team's going to have a defense compared to what App State put up there, okay? And so we're going to slow the roll a little bit with that. Now, do I think JMU is better than Tulane, Memphis, UNT? I do, all right? And UNT doesn't have much of a schedule either, right? They don't have a big win like JMU did, and they got blown out at home. All right. The Louisville win isn't looking quite as good as it did a few weeks ago for JMU. That doesn't change the fact that UNT got hammered by USF at home, who just lost to Navy, who maybe is a little bit better than I thought they were. Still think they're going to finish closer to 7-5 than 10-2, but we'll see. Now they're 8-2. All right. But JMU, in this ball game, I'm not even sure Alonzo Barnett played all that great. Had a solid game. 22 out of 35 is pretty good. 62%, I guess. 303 yards. Did not throw a touchdown. Did have one interception. Did run for 2 touchdowns, but didn't finish with any yards because of sacks, I guess, or, rushing due to sacks probably. Malary had a big ball game, though. 8 attempts, 105 yards, 3 touchdowns. So Jobi Malary had a huge ball game. Wayne Knight, 16 carries, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. Matthew Sluka, who played the whole fourth quarter, or approximately thereof, 4 carries, 70 yards, did not attempt to pass. Did not attempt to pass at all. All right. As for App State, A.J. Swan was just bad. 8 out of 28, 64 yards, 1 interception. J.J. Cole came on in to play the fourth quarter. Dude does a nice job padding his stats. But even Dubinion, Rashad Dubinion, who's had a really good season, 10 attempts, 25 yards. All right. App State was outclassed, and not by a little bit. All right. And at the same time, JMU is trying to make a statement. They are trying to be as dominant as they possibly can to get noticed. Now, it's going to help, as I mentioned. Navy beat USF. So they're going to fall out of the college football rankings. Tulane won. I believe Memphis lost. And UNT won. So it's really down to, UNT, Tulane, and JMU right now for that college football playoff rankings. As in terms of AP rankings that came out on Sunday, JMU was, I believe, 21. Let me see that. Maybe I got to check that out. Because I got it here. Hold on a second. JMU is 21. North Texas is 22. And Tulane is 24. So they're a couple of spots ahead of Tulane and 1 spot ahead of North Texas. All right. Well, again, North Texas, their strength of schedule is worse than JMU. All right. The computers love JMU for some reason. All right. But they're in good shape. And they get Washington State this weekend. And they got to keep on going at it. We'll see what happens with Coastal Carolina, see if they can bounce back. It's going to be tough to win some games without Samari Collier. But we'll see what happens. All right. They didn't lose because they lost their quarterback. They lost because they couldn't stop anybody. We'll get back to that. We'll get to that here eventually. All right. All right. Let's take a timeout. JMU with a big win, easily over App State, 58-10. On the other side of the conference, Southern Miss took it on the chin. Texas State, you want to talk about it, played a complete ball game and took down the Golden Eagles. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. couple of nice days off, Monday and Tuesday. So we're looking forward to that. All right. As we mentioned, we thought Southern Miss was ripe for a letdown. All right. We did not realize the seriousness of the quarterback situation, but just a huge win on the road against Arkansas State. Texas State is not nearly as bad as their 0-5 record would indicate. Outside of their, 32-point loss to JMU, the other 4 losses in the Sun Belt are by a combined 14 points. And 2 of those games are in overtime. One was by a missed extra point. And they couldn't quite pull off the full comeback against the Cajuns. So they are much better than that 0-5 record would indicate. Not saying they're world beaters, but everybody knows they have an explosive offense and a really bad defense. The problem ended up being problem A was that there was no Braylon Braxton. All right. Apparently that came out at least within the locker room that Landry Liddy was going to get the start. Okay. Obviously, he did not play well. He did not have a good football game. And eventually, that's going to come back and hurt the defense. However, that doesn't change the fact that the defense was awful early on. That's one thing if the defense gets tired at the end of the half or, late third, early fourth quarter. Okay, that's one thing. Texas State put up 140 yards in the first quarter, put up 226 yards in the second quarter alone. So in the first half, Texas State not only had 27 points, but 366 yards. Should we go through, the amount of times that Southern Miss has given up that kind of yardage? Because I bet you it's not much. And we're talking a whole football game. Let's see what Mississippi State had all game long. Mississippi State had 465. All right. That's all game long. That's an SEC team. Not to mention they're better than we think they are. Jackson State, let's see what they had. All ball game long, 322. All right. So we can keep on doing that. What did App State do? App State went up and down the field, remember, did throw those interceptions in the end zone. So they had 470 yards, but they got some timely turnovers in that. Let's see what Louisiana Tech probably put up. I'm not sure if Louisiana Tech did. Let's see. Louisiana Tech, 339 yards all game long. All right. And we can go on and on, right? I'm sure they held the Cajuns to not very much, right? Cajuns actually had 356. All right. But that's all game long. Against Texas State, they gave up 366 and a half. So as bad as Landry Liddy played, and he did not play well, the defense was a no-show as well. All right. And I'm a big believer in the backup theory. Now this is, I guess, my own theory. I don't know. Certainly not. But it goes back to Jeff Rutledge and the New York Giants, leading them to the Super Bowl over the Bills. And that everybody around him has to play that much better, because Jeff is probably not going to lead us to, a Super Bowl title, whereas Phil Simms could have led us that way. So the offensive line's got to play better. The defensive line's got to play better. The defense has to cover better, has to create more pressure. The offensive line has to block better. The running backs have to run harder. Wide receivers have to, catch the ball and run harder. All right. Everybody has to lift their game up when the backup plays. All right. That's the backup theory. That did not happen with Southern Miss against Texas State. Or on the other side of things, you look at it the other way. Texas State did not allow that to happen. All right. Maybe they smelled blood with Landry Liddy in there. Once you get ahead, now they don't have anybody to bring him back. All right. And what you end up having is you throwing a bad interception in the end zone that had no business being thrown, outside of being forced to throw it because you're looking for points. Not that the game wasn't settled by that time. But he throws it right to the defender, and Texas State takes it back for a touchdown. So I would tell you that it wasn't only Braylon Braxton was an issue, but it was really the defense that kind of had the chance to set the tone and did not. It's one thing if you run out of gas at the end of the ball game or at the end of the half or at the end of the ball game. That would, if the offense isn't doing anything, kind of like if you looked at the Alabama Oklahoma game, right? Statistically, that's not Alabama's defense's fault. It was the offense's fault, right? The defense played really well. Turnovers cost them the game. So again, if you can't stop them at the end of the ball game because you've been on the field all game long, that's one thing. But Southern Miss's defense, usually opportunistic, could not create any of those turnovers, and therefore could not stay in this football game. All right. Now we'll see where Braylon Braxton, his health, what that means. South Alabama playing a little bit better. Not a whole lot better, but a little bit better. Certainly had a big comeback yesterday or Saturday against Monroe. So we'll see what happens if South Alabama doesn't turn the ball over. All right. And we'll see if Braylon Braxton is available. All right. I saw people say that he doesn't need to be available for South Alabama. He needs to be available for the Troy ball game. That's the big one. All right. Although Troy seems to be going in the wrong direction right now, as it is. So I'm not sure how much these tiebreakers are going to mean, but it's not nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. So we'll talk about that next. Again, we'll get to the other ball games. Coastal Carolina and Georgia Southern played a very entertaining ball game. Was able to watch that one. Marshall got past Georgia State, and we'll talk about South Alabama and Monroe on a Tuesday. But let's get to the tiebreakers. We'll do that when we come back right after I tell you about game time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to secure last-minute tickets at best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. All right? JMU and Washington State are sold out. Best way to get tickets is going to be on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. By the way, getting back to Southern Miss and South Alabama, because we don't know the quarterback situation, Southern Miss is a pick'em against South Alabama. Could be a 2-touchdown favorite, but without Braylon Braxton, we don't know the situation. All right, so you guys know I despise these tiebreakers. The Sun Belt makes them incredibly difficult. All right. And so we'll talk about the West as the East is settled with JMU. And so I thought it was going to be a little bit more difficult. All right. And this is a 3-way tie for a championship if this happens. Not going to be necessarily easy because you need Troy anyway needs Southern Miss to beat South Alabama, and then somehow Troy needs to beat Southern Miss to beat South Alabama, need Arkansas to beat the Cajuns, by the way, or they could take Arkansas State losing to the Cajuns because Arkansas State beats Troy head-to-head. And then if Southern Miss and Troy are tied going into last weekend, then it's just winner take all, right? That would benefit. But if it is a 3-way tie, okay, because the only way that's going to happen is if Troy beats Southern Miss, and already Southern Miss has beaten Arkansas State, and Arkansas State has already beaten Troy. So somehow, if these teams all finish up 6-2, so that eliminates the first part of the tiebreaker. All right. The team with the highest winning percentage in games played among the tied teams shall be declared the division champ. Okay. Well, they're all 1-1. If Troy beats Southern Miss. If Southern Miss beats Troy, they win it. Okay. And obviously, I'm making this more complicated than it should be. But if there is a 3-way tiebreaker, all right, if the Cajuns beat Arkansas State and we're down to a 2-way tiebreaker, 2-team, then it's just going to be head-to-head. And even I can handle that. All right. It'll come down to the final game, Troy and Southern Miss. All right. However, it's the second thing listed under multiple team tiebreaker for the division championship. All right. If still tied, the team with the highest overall division winning percentage shall be the division champion. Okay. Well, Southern Miss would have losses to Troy and Arkansas State. That's in division. Arkansas State has losses to ULM and Southern Miss. Troy has losses to Arkansas State and ODU. So they have a better division record in the West. Now, do I think Troy's running the table after what we've seen the last couple of weeks? I do not. But at the same time, as much as the bottom has fallen out, can it turn around just as quickly? Maybe. Someone did say that offensive line is completely banged up, which would make sense because they just have not. They didn't get any time against Arkansas State, and obviously they did absolutely nothing against ODU. So those things would make sense. So basically, Troy is hoping for a 3-way tie, minimally. Although, again, we'll see what the Cajuns do against Arkansas State. That would seem to be, in a big way, favoring Arkansas State. It's in Jonesboro. The Cajuns don't have like 3 of their defensive secondary, so that could be an issue. This used to be the rivalry for the Cajuns. All right, I'm not sure it's that way anymore. But it is a big ball game for the Cajuns. I mean, Arkansas State still has an outside shot at the division title. The Cajuns still have an outside shot at getting to a bowl game. And if the Cajuns beat Arkansas State, they're going to get ULM at home. And you would think they would win that to go to a bowl game. And then all of a sudden, it is quite the turnaround from 2-6 to go to a bowl game. That's a pretty good coaching job. He won't win. Mike Desormeaux won't win Coach of the Year. I don't know if he'll get any votes for it, but that would be one of the all-time great in-season coaching jobs. Pretty good from what they've been through. So we'll see. It's not that long way to go. It's on a Thursday. We'll find out if they're going to if they have a chance to go to a bowl game on Thursday. All right. Cajuns play Arkansas State, and that game is, I believe, on ESPN. So we shall see. All right. So there's a lot of going back and forth. There is one gentleman I will not be following. He put up what he thought was funny. And these guys got a lot of Twitter muscles. Like, I generally won't say anything on Twitter that I wouldn't say to somebody's face, right? I asked Charles Huff, is the defense good or lucky? And I agreed with what he said, right? Regardless of what the other team does, we still have to make the play, right? If my wide receiver's running wide open and the quarterback doesn't connect with them, that doesn't help our cause. If the other team quarterback throws it right to our defensive back or linebacker, they still got to make the play, or no one's going to remember it outside of we didn't make the play. Nonetheless, we saw plenty of throws yesterday. All right. Liddy threw one in the end zone for a pick six that should have never been thrown, right? We saw Tad Hudson running to his left, kept on looking downfield, and it was like, that throw better be to the sideline, better be out of bounds, or you run out of bounds. And he threw it back across his body right into the arms of the linebacker, right? DJ Langway did the same exact thing. You saw the Florida ball game. He's running to his left. Pass gets tipped and into the arms of the defender. Probably among other things, cost Florida a chance to win that ball game, if not tie. All right. You just can't be making those foolish plays. Does the defense have to take advantage of it? Sure. We've all seen plenty of times it's directly in the hands of the defensive back, and everyone makes a joke. Well, if they could catch, they'd be on offense. It's not always true, but that's the cliche line. So we just saw a bunch of those bad throws on Saturday. It's just inexplicable with what happened. And so we'll see if it's kind of tough if Southern Miss doesn't get, usually if the defenses don't get, the turnovers, and I think Charles Huff said this, that the easiest statistic to show you how you win football games is turnover margin. It doesn't matter what level, it's turnover margin, especially when it's more than one. If somebody has 2 turnovers and you have 1 turnover, that's, I don't know how many times they win the tournament, but you get more than a 2 turnover margin, you usually win the football game. Michigan had like 5 turnovers. I don't know what the turnover margin was in that game. They usually not going to win that football game. Somehow they did. All right. We'll have to get back into basketball as well. I think there were some games on Sunday. Let me see here. App State beat Dartmouth 85-77. And Troy has all of a sudden lost a couple in a row, 94-85. There were some games on Saturday as well. And you got to be careful. South Alabama is 5-0 for the first time in maybe forever. They beat Coppin State. Coppin State's 0-6. All right. So we can't go too crazy over that win. But are they that good? I mean, they've beaten Toledo, Elkhorn State, Spring Hill, Central Michigan, and Coppin State. They are at Jacksonville State on the 19th. They're at UAB on the 21st. And then they get a little bit of time off for the holiday. Then they get UTSA on the 30th. So we're going to find out very quickly, although not that quickly. They only have 3 games in 2 weeks, where this team is. All right. So they got some tough road games coming up. So that'll be interesting to see. Let's see where else we are. Basketball-wise, Virginia was beat Marshall. They handled the Herd 104-78. Herd's first loss of the season. They got blown out in the first half, 61-33. Texas State beats Texas Southern 77-67. George Washington over Old Dominion 96-73, and Long Island over James Madison 88-79. James Madison off to a little bit of a tough start, 2-3 on the season. And Arkansas State beats Christian Brothers 95-67. All right, let's see what's coming up. Usually, I think we have got a lot of games on Tuesday. Monroe's taking on Lamar on Monday. Georgia State at Arizona State on Monday as well. And then seemed to get a nice slate of games Tuesday, a couple of games on Wednesday, a couple of games on Thursday. A lot of games on Friday. I'm surprised they play so many games on Friday. Seems to be an ideal. I guess they'd rather go up against high school football than college football. That may be the deal. You got to, have parking and facilities and stuff like that. So we'll try to keep up to date on the basketball as much as we can. All right, we'll get to the rest of the Sun Belt ball games. Again, Marshall won, South Alabama won, Coastal Carolina lost. And so there are some tough losses there. I feel like sometimes I do this slanted one way. You got to give Texas State some credit. All right. You got to give them a little bit of credit for going into, it was in Hattiesburg, right? Yeah. It was in Hattiesburg. And mowing down Southern Miss. I know it was the backup quarterback. I get it. But it's 27-0 at half, and they've given up 350 yards of offense. There's not a whole lot the quarterback's doing about that. All right. The defense was no-show. So you got to give credit to G.J. Kinney and the Bobcats in that case. I always seem to take what I think is the overriding theme from the game. Sometimes I forget the other half. And so I do want to give props to Texas State Because, I mean, you saw some Southern Miss fans going back and forth with me during the week that we know it. We got it, right? You know, I didn't think it was going to be that much of a letdown. Again, I didn't realize Braylon Braxton wasn't playing. And now I got somebody telling me that everybody in college football should have a backup quarterback. I mean, I believe that. You need to have the backup quarterback ready, but there's always going to be a drop-off between the starter and the backup, normally speaking. All right? And I got somebody picking out random ball games telling me how good backup quarterbacks are. All right? I don't think you want to see the backup quarterbacks for Texas State play. Is all I'm saying. All right. There's a reason they're backing them up. All right. Could be cash for all I know, but there's a reason that they're there. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. We'll continue to wrap up this week and start to look ahead to next week, and we'll talk some basketball as well. All right. Thank you, Marich. Oh, and by the way, we're almost at 2,700 subscribers. Need like 3 more while I was recording this. So hopefully we'll get to 2,700 subscribers by the end of this week. Again, still got a really much of an outside shot to get to 3,000. So we need 300 in a month and a half. So I guess we can still do it. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but we'll still ask. All right. Again, thanks very much for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.